Hi guys, it's Ben here from Airline to Sim, and welcome to a little vlog. It's been a little while, and everybody in the community this morning is absolutely losing their, well, you know, the brown stuff you get from a cow, because Microsoft have just announced that they're bringing back Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, if you've kind of forgotten the history, obviously the whole sim platform began with Microsoft. In fact, I think it began with Apple before that, and then I think at some point in the 80s, I think Microsoft then bought the rights to it, I think from Apple, and then they started to develop it themselves. And of course, we went through all the Flight Simulator versions that we know. I think I arrived around Flight Simulator 98, and then we had 2000, the one with Concorde in it, and then 2002, FS9, FS 2004, and then finally FSX was where Microsoft bowed out, and then they came up with the acceleration pack, and that was pretty much it. Around 2007, I think 2008, Microsoft bailed out of Flight Simulator altogether, and that was it. Now, we did see another quick resurgence, which was called Microsoft Flight, and you'll probably remember that. It was a bit more of a kind of arcade style thing, where you could fly kind of a weird little aeroplane around Hawaii. Didn't really do anything, didn't have any ATC, there were no jets, the geographical area was pretty limited, and to be fair, it was a bit rubbish. It didn't last very long. I think within a year it was gone. And we've seen also Dovetail had a go at bringing back the old FSX code with Flight Sim World. Had an attempt at changing some things, some new weather, that True Sky thing, which was pretty cool, but overall it was it just wasn't good enough to cut it. And failed. So we're kind of left now with the world of X-Plane 11 and Lockheed Prepared 3D, and that's kind of where we are. Now, out of nowhere, Microsoft have announced Microsoft Flight Simulator, the kind of new reborn version that they say is going to come out at some point. I think 2020 is what they're saying, kind of end of 2019, early 2020. So I just thought I would download the video. Basically what I did was I downloaded the 4K video, and I've opened it up in Premiere, this video editor, and I just kind of went through it frame by frame just to look and see, are there any clues as to how this thing works, what it's going to look like in the sim, and are there any clues that this is actually a desktop simulator? Because I think a lot of people think that this is all kind of pre-rendered footage. It does say at the beginning of the video, it does say captured in real time in 4K. So I've just kind of been through it frame by frame, and to be honest, it does look amazing. And there really are very few giveaways that this is a simulator at all. But if you look at it frame by frame, there are just a couple of moments where you go, actually, you know what? That is a simulator. So it kind of starts with this opening scene, and we see these beautiful clouds. These clouds are, I think, the nicest clouds I have ever seen in a sim. I mean, we just do not have clouds like this with the lighting and the fact that you can see bits of sky through them, and the kind of transition and the cloud layering. If these are real clouds and they're not just kind of superimposed real clouds over the top, then this really is a game changer. So this kind of scene, you can't really see an awful lot. What we can see in this next scene here of these mountains is, look at the lighting, look at the way the kind of shadows dance on the peaks. Again, if this is real and this is actually what it looks like in the sim, then this is stunning. Now, let's move forward to this next scene, and this is the first time there's a little giveaway that this is a sim. Now, blink and you'll miss it. Let me just move it forward and go back. Now, can you see what I can see? Are you looking in the right place? There is a little bit of texture popping. Now, texture popping is something that we've seen in all of the sims so far. I mean, X-Plane kind of does it. Prepare 3D does it a lot, which is basically where it loads up the autogen as you fly over. Autogen being these little buildings that you see rendered. Now, I don't really know where this is. I thought initially maybe it was Corfu, but it's not. It's somewhere kind of rocky. Looks like one of the Greek islands or somewhere. I'm sure someone will know where this is. Someone with maybe better geography than me. But look, if I go back and look, you can actually see there's a little bit of texture popping. Let me just zoom in. Now, obviously, this is the 4K capture, and the more I zoom in, the more the quality goes really crappy. But it will help you just to see what I'm seeing. So look. It's here. Look at where my cursor is, right there, and there's another little bit over here, and you can just see, there you go, backwards and forwards. Look at that. You can see there's some texture popping there, and that to me is not me being horrible about it, going, oh look, it's rubbish. This kind of shows that this is actually footage from the sim, because you can see the textures loading as they fly towards it. So this does suggest that this is actually footage from the sim, that this is actually what it looks like. And you can see the quality of the buildings. This is all you know, kind of aerial footage, and these are all kind of 3D constructed buildings, and you can see that the textures of some of them are kind of better than others, but these are the real buildings. This is the, you know, these are all stitched together from photos of the actual buildings, as opposed to just kind of generic weird looking Minecraft buildings, which is kind of what we have in the sim right now. And it's, I mean, even with this little texture popping issue, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. So going forward then to this next frame, and there's not an awful lot to give away that this is a sim. See that the water moves in that slightly kind of uniform way that the sim water does, and these textures over here look a little bit low res. That's the only giveaway. But this mist, never been able to do mist properly. You'll probably know that when you see mist in the sim right now, it kind of you get a kind of weird kind of flashing and strobing effect with low lying mist like this. It's never ever looked this good in the sim before. If again this is what it will look like, it's amazing. Now this next scene is an interesting one. It's inside a hangar, and let me just zoom out a little bit with it for this one. And I kind of thought this isn't real. This is, you know, a real hangar that's been, you know, superimposed the airplane on top. But actually I don't think it is. If you look at these, look at this guy here, and look at this guy. If I move backwards and forwards through the frames, you can actually see they kind of move in the same way. They're kind of shaking their heads and kind of lifting their arm up and down, which suggests that both these guys are being kind of rendered in the same way. And this is definitely in sim footage. But just, I mean, look, I mean, they've blurred the background. I mean, you can see that the aeroplane's sharply in focus with all of this amazing PBR, and the background has been blurred. This is a kind of video editing effect. This is not real, but it still looks very. I mean, look at the way the sunlight kind of glints on the cockpit or the side of the fuselage. I mean, just look. It just looks like someone's, you know, been polishing this. It's absolutely stunning. But both these guys kind of move in the same way, which suggests to me that this is real. And again, there's a bit of video editing going on here. The aeroplane itself is blurred, and the prop is in focus, which is again a bit of a video editing trick. Somebody's sort of traced around here to blur out the back of the aeroplane. You can actually see a little bit of anti-aliasing here on the wing where they've kind of done it. But it's real. I mean, this is real. Now, let's look at this little thing of this A320 being pushed back. Now, if this is what the scenery looks like out the box, I mean, wow. If you remember back in the FSX days, what the default, this is LAX. If you remember what the default LAX looked like, it was rubbish. And this looks like, you know, Fly Tampa, Flight Beam, like super high quality. It is amazing. Now we've got these guys in the high-vis jackets kind of moving around, and they move kind of realistically. We already kind of have this in the sim right now. One little boo-boo that I found, one is that this airplane's not being pushed back on the line, but we're not going to worry about that too much. But one other thing that just gives away the simulator fact is you see this little baggage cart in the background. Let me just zoom in on this A320 back here. You can actually see this luggage cart is driving through the engine. So the right engine of this A320, the luggage cart's kind of driving right through it. So that suggests that, to me, again, it's not me just picking holes in it, but it is suggesting that this is from the sim, because the sim isn't that smart to know. This luggage cart will just drive along a pre-programmed line. It isn't necessarily going to know that aircraft is parked there. So, you know, that to me suggests that this is definitely from the sim. The flight deck to me looks suspiciously like the Aerosoft A320. You can see, if you look at the font, a lot of people who've got the Aerosoft A320 you know, complain bitterly that the fonts don't quite look right. And they they look just like the Aerosoft one, and just trying to see the got some of it looks a bit wrong. Like this is on 1013, and this is supposed to be at LAX, so it should be 2992. Again, I'm just picking out stupid faults here, but this is pretty much what it would look like with the pushback. Like you see, nose wheel, steering disconnect, TCAS standby, APU bleed, and then the engine page is up. Now, the weird thing is normally that page comes up when you select engine start, and it's been kind of manually selected. But again, this is just me picking holes. But it pretty much looks like you would expect an A320 to look like at this stage in the pushback. And the TCAS says 2019, which is interesting. I wonder whether that's a little sign from them for us. But this almost certainly is, I think, the Aerosoft A320 flight deck. And outside looks pretty realistic. You've got this little luggage cart, but again, it's where's it driving from? Did it appear from over here? I'm not sure. So you get there's a bit of motion blur here on this. There's a little bit, you can see it's kind of blurry. That's motion blur. And again, we've got some blur, some kind of heat blur on the engines. Now, obviously, we already have this in the sim, or we have it in X-Plane. We don't have it in P3D, but it's very impressive. And you can see the kind of PBR, the runway lighting. Let me just zoom out a little bit so we can see that in slightly higher res, but it's very impressive. Now, one of the things that you can actually see if you look at the ground textures here. This does look at a little bit, and this is again just me being, well, am I being a little bit unfair? You can see the kind of taxiway lighting, the runway signs and stuff like that. Again, this does look a little bit defaulty. This does look a little bit default. It's not kind of super high, pretty looking textures. But again, I'm trying to pick out stuff that suggests that this is all from the sim. And then we've got this beautiful scene of kind of coming around the corner. Very little really to suggest that this is a sim. Obviously, Dubai. We all know what Dubai looks like, and again, this blows the socks off. Say Fly Tampa Dubai. I don't know whether they've used it and re-rendered it. I have no idea. But the cloud, look at the clouds and the lighting. It's just absolutely superb. Then we have this little island again. There's really not an awful lot to suggest that this is a sim. The next bit where you kind of think, look at this rain effects. Wow. Now, let me just fast forward to the bit where we're over the stadium here. Now, this is the biggest giveaway of them all that this is a sim. And the giveaway is in the road traffic. So let me just, let me just move that down there. Now, I want you to have a look at what's going on with the traffic here off the left wing, off the right wing. So you can see, look at the traffic. The traffic basically just drives on the right, on the correct side of the road for the USA, but you can see that it kind of drives through. So you see this little truck here and this little white truck. They kind of collide. And again, a little bit further up, have a look at what's going on with the traffic up here at this intersection. You can see this little white truck appears from nowhere and kind of crashes into the other one. And the other thing is that the traffic, like this guy is driving straight on into the parking lot here. So this is obviously kind of AI road traffic. There's no question about that. And again, let me just move this down. And if you look at the traffic here on the highway, you can see there's some traffic going across. So look at this guy, look at this guy. This is obviously just slightly at the wrong level. Now again, this is just me. I'm literally having to go through it frame by frame to spot these little issues. But I mean, the fact that you can, all of the cars have their own shadows, and obviously the sun is quite low, so the shadows are quite long. I mean, this is just a groundbreaker. We've never seen anything like this in the sim before. And then this scene here where the aeroplane does a bit of a loop. there's a bit of motion blur here, and you can see actually if I pause it, it's blurry, whereas the background is in focus. They've added some motion blur to this object here, just to make it look better in the video. But you can see that the ground textures and the trees and everything looks absolutely amazing. Now let's just kind of move forward. Here's another interesting one. Again, you can see how the scenery has been constructed. If you look down here, there's a McDonald's drive-through, and there's some cars down here. You see that car's kind of bent at a weird angle, and these trees look a bit weird. And this again is just because obviously this is obviously just kind of ortho scenery that's been kind of rendered in 3D to make it look right in the sim. And again, because of the angle of which it was taken, it just looks a bit weird. So again, you know, although this is absolutely stunning and better than anything we've ever seen in a sim ever, you can kind of see when you slow it down how it's been stitched together, which, you know, it isn't a bad thing, because at least it shows it's real. Then we've got some elephants. It's an elephant simulator, and then we've got some kind of air-to-air shots, which is kind of cool. And then this little river down here you can see is slightly at weird angles. It doesn't look entirely natural. This to me looks a little bit more like the sim that I would recognize. This looks a bit like kind of Orbix or something like that, you know, where, you know, rivers, you know, they run in kind of straight lines rather than in nice perfect curves. And then more giraffes, nice looking clouds again. And one other thing as well, again, a little bit of texture popping that you can spot, and then blink and you'll miss it. It's just below this guy here, and it's this little area of the terrain just there. See, look, if I move it backwards and forwards, just look, you see it goes pop, pop, pop. So there you go, that's it. That is Microsoft Flight Simulator, their kind of teased trailer. Looks amazing, but if you kind of look frame by frame and you kind of hunt for the clues, you can see that this is very much still a simulator, and still just has maybe just some of the challenges of the sims that we're already used to, but this just, you know, blows everything else out the water. I mean, if this is what it looks like out of the box, we're seeing better skies than we've ever seen. We're seeing better ground textures than we've ever seen, more detail than we've ever seen, and even the aeroplanes that it ships with. I mean, the Aerosoft A320's certainly not as good as, say, the Flight Sim Labs, but if this is the quality of the aircraft and the textures and the content that we get out of the box, then wow, this is a game changer and a half. Again, a little bit of just notice that there. Just look at this little bit of ground texture here. You can just see. Wait. There you go. Look, just you can see a little bit of texture popping just there. So there's definitely, if you know where to look, let me just zoom in on that so we can see it a bit more clearly. So there you go. Look at that. There's a little bit of texture popping there. So this is definitely from the sim. There's no question of it. Now, whether the clouds and the skies are real, and this is what it looks like, remains to be seen. But the fact that you're seeing the world rendered like this, so that the changes in the ground textures and this kind of detail between the city and the desert and, you know, the pyramids here and the kind of lush greenery of the green parts of the world, it's an absolute game changer. So very interesting times ahead. We never ever saw this coming, and if it's even if it's 50% as good as it looks on the trailer, I think we're in for a very exciting time. So there you go. That's just a few little things that I picked out from this trailer, and stay tuned for more news on the brand new flight simulator from Microsoft. All right, this is Ben from Airline to Sim. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon, guys.